2 of our continuing series on New York car insurance policies, teaching you how to understand your policy better and get the most coverage in an economical way for you and your family's protection. And in this session, we're going to talk about the liability portion of your insurance policy. Remember, the liability portion of an insurance policy protects you and your family if you hurt someone through your own carelessness or negligence. All too often, we know that, of course, this can happen. If you do and are involved in an accident, you may have a claim made against you and potentially face a lawsuit. What this portion of the policy does is it provides you really 2 different forms of protection. First, it will pay the claim, and second, it will pay for your attorney to defend you. What typically happens if you're sued is that you will be assigned to a very experienced insurance defense attorney to defend you in a lawsuit. Your next question is going to be, well, how much money will my insurance company pay? Well, if you look at your insurance policy, and I recommend that you have your insurance policy out while you're looking at these videos, you will typically see the liability protection limits phrased something like this: $25.50 or $5,100 or $100/300. So what do these numbers mean? Well, this means that these are liability limits in the thousands of dollars. So if you have liability limits in the amount of $100,000/300,000, and if you're in an accident, your policy will pay up to $100,000 per injured person with a maximum payout of $300,000 per accident. So if there is more than one person hurt in the accident, you will have coverage up to a total of $300,000. These limits are all that your insurance company is obligated to pay. Now, the most important question is that enough coverage? How much coverage should you buy? I will tell you that the coverage I have is for $500,000 single limit with a $1 million umbrella policy, which means that if I were to negligently hurt someone else in a car accident, I would be covered if they sued me, and if they incurred substantial damages, I would be covered up to $1,500,000 per person, and for a total of $1,500,000 per accident. It is important that you get that number as high as you can afford. Far too many people have coverage of $25,000/$50,000, which is the minimum allowed under New York State law. Remember, that's $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident. The problem with these minimum limits is that if you hit someone and put them in a hospital for a couple of days, their medical bills alone can exceed $25,000. And if they're in an ICU, you can easily exceed $100,000 in just a few days. The danger you face if you have these minimums is that if you do not have enough coverage and you get sued, your insurance might not be sufficient to pay for the person's injuries. If their injuries exceed the $25,000 policy limits, you may still be responsible for the excess. What that means is that if you are taken to trial, a jury could award damages in excess or greater than $25,000. You would be responsible for the portion above that and would be required to pay the difference, which for many of us would mean having to file for bankruptcy protection. But if you own your home, that property would be at risk, as bankruptcy does not always allow you to keep your home. A portion of your wages now and in the future would be at risk also if you don't have sufficient insurance coverage. What I want you to do is, if you got $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 of coverage, I want you to call your insurance company and ask them this: how much would it cost to increase your limits to $500,000 or to $1 million in coverage through an umbrella policy, or increasing your liability limits in your car insurance policy? Ask your insurance company how much it would cost to increase your policy on an annual basis from these low limits to something much more substantial and protective. I think you are going to be surprised at how little this actually costs. So your task for today, your homework, is to review your insurance policy. If you have limits that are way too low, call your insurance company immediately. Ask them to give you a price on increasing the limits, and as always, if you have any questions about that, and you're in New York and you have a New York insurance policy, you can contact my office. We provide free car insurance policy reviews. If you'd like to go back to the general overview, you can click here. Or you can go on to the uninsured motorist, underinsured motorist coverage, or you can click here and learn about no-fault coverage.